All right, hello, welcome. So yes, this is the Society for Conservation Biology Florida chapter, and this is our second general body meeting. And this is just a brief introduction to what we do in case you did not go to our first general body meeting, which I hope a lot of you are here from our hay building event last week. But yeah, so our mission is to promote the dissemination of conservation science, and we like to bring in speakers from the University of Florida as well as outside speakers since we have Zoom as a platform now. So we do bi-weekly GBMs, as I said, with researchers, conservationists, graduate students, and then other related professionals, talk about their research, and then volunteer events and socials as well in order to get have our members be able to engage with wildlife and other projects that help further conservation in our area and also more larger global initiatives as well. And we do have more information in like a recording that we have from our first GBM. So that's posted on YouTube, and that link should be sent out as well, where our officers have like more of an introduction, and like you also get to hear more about our overall events and stuff. So if you'd like, go check out that video to have more information. But yeah, this is just a list of our officers that we have, so you can familiarize yourself with faces and names. But yeah, I will keep this brief. And then a reminder of how you can join if you haven't joined already. There's our Facebook, Instagram, and then our GroupMe, which we also have a GroupMe link that can be sent in the chat. And then just a review of our point system. We have a lot of perks of being here if you're new. Yeah, just you need to go to 3 GBM. We don't need to, but in order to be considered an active member and like have more merch and end of semester trip perks, this is the point allocation that you need to reach. And then yeah, we're working on keeping track of that. So be sure to sign in to all our events. And yeah. And then also we have funding for the International Society for Conservation Biology, which is, yeah, the perks are listed here as well. We just have funding to provide like individual students with membership to this, so you can be part of the global community as well. So you can fill out that link if you're interested, and we'll see how many people are interested in like try to allocate money that way, and then also send you more information via email about how that process would go. And also an exciting thing, so we have this hoodie design here, and we're going to be ordering them and just giving them out to our dedicated members. So we're gonna give them to anyone who's interested and like wants to dedicate their time to the club. So yeah, they're free, and if you'd like to get a hoodie and like pick it up in Gainesville at one of our GBMs, feel free to fill out this form. Look at this cool design. And yeah, so Kaylee can talk about our upcoming event because she's the one leading our volunteering group. So.
Hi, so if you don't know who I am, my name's Kaylee and I'm the event coordinator. And if you don't already know, which a lot of you probably went to the tabling and already were at the GBM, but we're doing throughout the semester consistent like husbandry volunteering with Luby Bat Conservancy. And if you're interested, there'll be an interest form sent out in the chat. So all you need to do is just fill out that form, and then you'll be added to essentially a GroupMe, and that'll be where we'll be giving out all the information about that. And our next event related to that is just going to be a tour, which is going to be next Sunday, September 12th at 2. So if you're not interested in loopy volunteering, I mean, you could still come, but it's going to be mostly for the people who are interested in doing it consistently. So if you are interested, fill out that interest form and I'll add you to the group me. And yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. And then, yeah, our next GBM will be happening 2 weeks from today, and currently in the process of reserving a room. So hopefully there will be an in-person option. So stay in touch with us, with our group me and all the other social medias in order to find out. And then hopefully we can have our next one in person and meet you all. So yeah, but without further ado, Caro can give a brief introduction to our speaker, and then we'll be listening to his amazing topic.
All right. Hi, I'm Caro. I'm the outreach coordinator, and this is Dr. Matthew Hallett. He's my professor actually in zoo conservation and management, which can be used as a WEC focus course for those who are looking for a WEC focus course. It's awesome so far. I made my own planet zoo actually an hour ago, and it's awesome. It's like Zoo Minecraft. And you learn a lot about zoo conservation and how zoos run. It's really interesting. And he's going to be talking about his research in Guyana in conjunction with the Jacksonville Zoo on jags and a bunch of other cool species in that area.
All right, thank you very much. 100 extra credit points in class for your introduction. I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for having me. I'm happy to be here. Would someone mind making me co-host so I can share my screen?
Yes, just give me a second, please.
No problem. That way I
Okay,
can
good work now.
share some camera trap stuff.
It should be working now.
It's still telling me host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Is that better?
Yep,
Perfect.
there we go. Thank you. All right. So I just wanted to, I have some slides here. I'm going to share some pictures and a little bit about the research that we do, and tell you a little bit about how my position at UF fits in with Jacksonville Zoo and the work that we've been doing in Guyana. Feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions if you like, and I will try not to go on and on and on too long, although sometimes I get carried away when I'm talking about Guyana because it's something I'm very passionate about, but there'll definitely be time for Q&A at the end, and I'm happy to, I have my email on the last slide, and if you have any other questions or if you're interested in the work that we're doing or Jacksonville Zoo or any of that, feel free to reach out anytime. Okay, so I'm here to tell you about the work that we've been doing in Guyana. I've been working there for 10 years now, on and off, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I got there. So I'm originally from Chicago. I grew up, I'm a city kid by birth. There's a long way between growing up there and ending up spending most of my time tromping around in the rainforest in Guyana. But zoos and aquariums actually played a big part in my upbringing. I grew up going to Brookfield and Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, Shedd Aquarium. And then all of my first real jobs were in zoos and aquariums, first at North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro, North Carolina. Then as an intern at South Carolina Aquarium when I was my last year in undergrad. And then I worked there for a full year after I finished. I spent 4 years at Shedd Aquarium in Chicago before going back to school and getting really into field research. And now I have a relationship with Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. Technically, I'm a full-time professor, a full-time employee at UF, but Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens pays half of my salary, and with the expectation that I spend that half of my salary either in Guyana or in the field here in Florida. So I will, talking about the stuff that we're doing in Florida would be a whole nother talk. So I'll focus on Guyana today because that's the big chunk of my time. but zoos and aquariums have played a big, not even a big, a massive role in my life. Growing up in a city, it was a place that I really learned about wildlife and wild places. It was really important in sort of my development, and I was able to spend time with animals first, and then started sort of finding ways to go out in nature. And of course, now I spend a lot of time out there. Jacksonville Zoo has a conservation department, and within the conservation department, they have 4 main focus areas for their conservation programs. Guyana is one of them, and the other 4 are Florida, of course, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then Sumatra. So if you've ever been to Jacksonville Zoo, the zoo is broken up into geographic areas as well: South America, Asia, Africa, and then wild Florida. So they have one sort of conservation focus area that matches up with each of their exhibit areas. The director, the curator of conservation, John Lucas, has been working in the Congo for almost 40 years on okapi. He's also the president of the board of directors of the International Rhino Foundation. So he's very, very much involved with the Africa space at Jacksonville Zoo. And then there's a wide variety of staff that are involved in Florida conservation projects. There's a manatee critical care unit. Jacksonville Zoo and FWC team up to rescue injured and orphaned manatees. And they have a striped newt captive breeding and re-release program at Jacksonville Zoo. They have, the name is escaping me. There's an orchid that grows in northeastern Florida that they also propagate at Jacksonville Zoo and then replant out in the wild. So they support a wide variety of conservation programs. For Jacksonville, their priority has been on sort of a lower number of long-term engagements. So, some zoos offer conservation funding each year, $5,000 or $10,000 grants, or if you're Disney, $50,000 grants for people to apply for on an open basis, and they might fund 50 or 100 or 500 projects that they have limited contact with. Jacksonville decided to have a smaller number of programs, but sort of a larger and a longer term engagement. And I've been lucky enough to represent their Guyana programs, and then go on to sort of lead their Guyana programs now in my position with UF. And all of that dates back to my work here in Guyana. So I always start my presentations with this slide so that nobody feels bad. I am talking about Guyana, right? It's one of those small countries in the northern part of South America, there with the yellow text. Formerly British Guyana, now just plain old Guyana, but I still have, even after 10 years, I still have relatives that ask me how Africa was because they think I was in Ghana, or they ask if I speak French because they think I was in French Guiana. But I'm working in South America's only native English-speaking country, not native English-speaking country where English is the national language. And actually one of the countries with the highest % forest cover in the world, which was one of the things that drew me there. I first went actually as a volunteer. This is a place called Cayman House Research Station. It's run by an indigenous community in the interior of Guyana, and they've been doing a mark and recapture project on black caiman for 15 years now. And they also have an eco lodge and a wide variety of other education and conservation projects. So after I left Shed Aquarium, looking for something else to do, I took a volunteer opportunity at Cayman House and took a chance and went to a place that I had never been and never really heard of. And then 10 years later, it's become like my second home. So I spent a year at Cayman House as a volunteer before deciding to go back to school and really pursue research full time, which now ends up being a long time ago. As you can see, I look much younger and in much better shape in those photos there because they were a long time ago. So Guyana is interesting for many reasons, but one of them is that it has a very low deforestation rate and a very high % forest cover. So Of the entire area of Guyana, which is about the size of the British Isles, the entire country is made up of about 85% intact forest. So on this map here, it's showing the Guyana Shield. So Guyana is on your left, Suriname is in the middle, and French Guiana is on the right. Those three countries have the lowest deforestation rates in the world. And French Guiana has the highest forest cover in the world at like 93%, I think. But these three countries together represent one of the world's largest intact forests. And so for anybody who loves wildlife and is interested in nature and wild places, I mean, obviously this is a place that you would want to go and spend time, because it's one of the most remote and intact places that are left on this entire planet. And so certainly it's a wonderful place. Even that white sort of blotch that's there in the lower left-hand corner is actually also intact natural savanna habitat. It's not a pavement or urban area or anything. So even the grassland habitats in Guyana are sort of intact and in their natural condition, which makes it a really amazing place. This is what the area that I work in looks like. So I do work in that area that has the savanna and tropical forest, and with a number of indigenous communities scattered around the landscape. This is a village called Napi. And so most of the villages are constructed in the savanna itself, but in close proximity to forest, so people can access forest resources like wood and fruits and wildlife and fish to meet their daily needs. So obviously a beautiful place, one of the lowest human population densities in the world. The whole country of Guyana has only 800,000 people, and 95% of those live in a couple of cities on the coast. So the interior is really sparsely populated and a fantastic place for nature lovers. A few other photos here. One of the most amazing things about the interior of Guyana, and the thing that undoubtedly keeps me going back every year, are the people. The indigenous Makushi and Wapishan communities that live in Guyana's interior, have been managing the region's resources for millennia. They're stewards of natural resources, their wealth of knowledge, and they're amazing people to spend your time with. So, my initial focus of going to Guyana was really about wildlife and rainforests and savannas and wild places and all that good stuff. But what has really kept me going back is that I've made lifelong friends and colleagues, and we formed a research team that depends on one another. I depend on the guys and girls that I work with in Guyana for the research that we do. They depend on us for their income, for livelihoods, for training opportunities, and so on. And we've built a great working relationship. So all of this Guyana work sort of started when I was a PhD student right here at UF. So I did my undergrad at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. I did my master's work at Miami University in Ohio, not that one down in South Florida. And I did my PhD at UF in the School of Natural Resources and Environment, or SNRE. You may have heard of, but my advisor was in WEC, so WEC was also my home department. And my PhD research was focused on jaguars. We were using trail cameras to understand how jaguars were using that diverse landscape that I showed you pictures of, that has savannas and wetlands and swamps and rainforest and mountains and all that kind of good stuff. And we found that jaguars were using all different parts of these landscapes. So here's a jaguar out in the open savanna from our trail cams. Here's a jaguar using what we call gallery forest, but are like sort of seasonally flooded palm swamp, like narrow palm forests that run along creeks. You see this jaguar is going down to get a drink of water. We found jaguars in bush islands. Bush islands are like forest fragments, natural forest fragments that grow on hilltops within the savanna. We found jaguars in riverine forests. So riverine forests are seasonally flooded. This spot where this big male jaguar is walking during the rainy season would be about 30 feet underwater. And in the dry season, obviously it's dry and terrestrial animals can move in. We found jaguars. This is probably my favorite camera trap photo that we've ever taken. It's in a lowland forest area, in a protected area. This is really the kind of king of the jungle shot, right? Perfectly aligned in a sunspot on the forest floor with a big healthy jaguar moving through. And then we also found jaguars on the tops of all of the highest mountains in the region. So even though, we most associate jaguars with sort of lowland rainforest, we found them using every part of the landscape. When we did some fancy capture recapture modeling with the camera trap data, we found that their densities were higher in lowland forests. So the names of these sites on the bottom are sort of the most forested sites. The names of the sites on the top here in this table have the most, are the sort of primarily savanna habitat. So jaguar population density showed to be higher in forested spaces versus grasslands, but they were still using every speck of this region. And we estimated overall that we believe that there are at least 600 individual jaguars in this region where I'm working, which would make it a globally significant jaguar population. I think anything over 300 individuals is significant. So although Guyana isn't a place that's on a lot of people's radars for conservation, it's an intact place with abundant wildlife and of course lots of jaguars. So through all this work that we were doing with camera trapping, we set cameras across about 400 sites across the entire region. I employed and trained over 150 people in the process. And a lot of those, in the initial process, it was a lot of guys. I keep putting this picture in my presentations, and then I realized that this is just a picture of a bunch of dudes. I do have a lot of women that work on our projects now. Initially, because of cultural beliefs and practices, the sort of field work that we were doing was, we tended to get more men. It was hard for women to get involved. Now that we've diversified our projects, we get a lot more female scientists from the interior participating. That being said, we've had a lot of interest from the men and women that work with us over the years, and they've only wanted to be more and more involved in the work that we're doing, helping us to get funding to do more projects and different types of projects, and to design questions and analyze data and go through it, which is a nice break because we have more camera trap photos now than I could ever possibly look at myself. So it's nice to have a team to share this with. And while I also have some students that are working in my lab now that I'm at UF, I have a probably 10 times as large of a team in the interior of Guyana. Now, the guys that you're looking at in this picture, only one of them graduated from high school, right? So these aren't traditionally educated guys, but these guys in this picture have forgotten more about the rainforest than I will ever know. These are maybe the most knowledgeable people that I've ever worked with. They never get lost. They never get tired. They never complain. They almost never drink water, which I don't know how they do that. And they're amazing guys in the field, and have kept me alive and kept me going all of these years. And so my goal has always been to, sort of repay the effort that they've put in to help me develop in my career. So my goal has always been to help them gain new skills, help them to get new economic and job opportunities, help them to move up the ladder as I'm sort of doing the same. So the way that I think about how I work with communities is through this sort of ladder, which is used by a lot of different people, but we focus a lot on building capacity. So every person who's ever worked with us in Guyana, I have a file on. I know how many days they've worked with us. I know what trainings they've received. And I meet with people regularly to talk to them about what types of skills they want to build and what types of careers they're interested in. So if people are really interested in camera traps, that's great. If they're interested in GPS or measuring, different aspects of forest ecology because they're interested in going into forestry, that's great. I find ways to support that. If they're interested in different species like caiman or monkeys or whatever, we try to find ways to support their interests in doing projects and helping to build skills so that we can pursue those things. And so I'll run through some examples of some of the projects that we do. As we're able to build skills in our teams, we can increase the complexity of the questions that we're asking. So, you know, if you don't have a very skilled team, you have to sort of ask simple questions because it matches up with the skills of the people you have. As you build those skills over time, you can ask more and more challenging questions, and your team can help you answer them, which is a big benefit. So, and one example of a relatively simple question that we had, we got a couple of, we were lucky to get a couple of camera trap photos of this really strange species that is native to the Amazon. These are bush dogs. Bush dogs are a native canid to the Amazon. They look I mean, you can kind of tell from these pictures, they're a little blurry, but they kind of look like a basset hound in a way. They're short and cylindrical, but they live in groups and they act like wolverines, sort of, that they have a very large home range, and they kind of act like African wild dogs, and that they chase prey. They don't ambush prey, they chase prey at a steady pace until the point of exhaustion. And then these little basset hounds just grab a piece and then tear their prey to bits, like savage little doggies that they are. So they're really little known. And so just the fact that we got a couple of camera trap photos of them was worthy of a publication, which went in last year. But any sort of record of these species is interesting, and it's an indication. You have to have huge tracts of intact forest for bush dogs to even want to stick around. And so this is just another indicator that, you know, the interior of Guyana is really healthy and intact, but also an example of sort of a basic project, right? We just had a couple of records of the locations of one species that's notable, right? So what we did, though, to increase the impact of a project like this was when we showed people these camera trap photos, there was a lot of interest. So, I mean, showing them locally. So I took the information that we gathered, I went back to the interior of Guyana and did presentations in the communities that we were working with. A lot of people were really excited to see photos of these bush dogs because they had never seen them before. They had heard a lot about them. And then we started getting these stories. People were talking about, my grandfather talked about seeing a bush dog, or I was out hunting and I saw one, or the XYZ happened. And so we got the idea, a friend, Samantha James, who's there in the bottom left, and I got the idea that, you know, we should collect these stories and apply them, because getting 2 data points from camera traps is interesting. But if you interview the people who know these animals, who have seen them when they're out hunting and doing their subsistence activities, you can get a lot more information that can be more impactful for management. So in that map in the middle, you see all of those. So the red dots are additional camera trap photos that we've been able to get since, but all the yellow and orange dots are locations of where individual hunters or farmers or fishermen spotted bush dogs and told us something about their behavior. We learned a lot about what type of prey they prefer. We learned the picture on the right there is a picture that somebody had on his phone. He found 3 bush dogs, 3 bush dog pups out in the forest, and he brought them home. So he shared the picture with us. The picture there on the left are a group of 4 crossing a road. Somebody else took this picture on their cell phone. They shared it with us when we were doing interviews. There on the bottom right is a picture of 2 bush dogs that were in the possession of an international wildlife trader. Somebody else had that picture on their phone. So just by talking to people, we got a ton of information about bush dog ecology, behavior, biology, conservation, and everything in between. And it dramatically expanded what we know about this species in Guyana. So I'm in the process of trying to submit this paper, but it was the first chapter of my dissertation, and was only possible because we were collaborating closely with the folks that we work with there in the interior. I'll speed through some of these a little bit. These are a few other examples of projects that we have ongoing. So black caiman, again, I mentioned, I worked with Caiman House on a mark recapture project. Caiman are not a popular animal in the interior of Guyana, right? They tear up people's fish nets, they eat people's dogs, they periodically attack and kill people. And so we did a project on human caiman conflict. It was led by Elisa Melville, who's there in the picture, and Mishak Pierre. Mishak's actually gone on, and last year he just started a master's at UF, and now he's working on human jaguar conflict. So he started with this project on caiman, and now he's come across and is studying at UF. He's a Guyanese as well. He's from the coast. But we worked on this project on human caiman conflict. We did a project 2 years ago measuring the impact of subsistence hunting. So using the same camera traps that we're using to measure jaguars, we instead focused on peccaries and paca and tapir and deer and all these animals that people use for subsistence and commercial hunting. Again, you've seen this map before. We use the same data for jaguars. In addition, we conducted in-home interviews with, it was about 800 households across the region, asking them what species they target, how often they hunt, what time of year, all that kind of good stuff. And we matched up our interviews with the camera trap data. And basically, in summary, we found that there were really, that the current level of hunting in the interior of Guyana is sustainable, because we didn't find any species had a negative correlation, like that their populations had a negative correlation with hunting, at least not a significant one. We found that there were a few tapirs, giant armadillos had a slight negative correlation, but nothing significant. And so one of the interesting things about wildlife management is that hunting studies are often done in areas where hunting is already very intense, or where it's almost already too late, right? Areas where lots of people go, lots of people are hunting, or there's lots of activity like mining and intensive logging and that sort of stuff. And so hunting studies tend to be there. And so there've been a lot of studies, especially in the Amazon, that show that levels of hunting are unsustainable. And so our study was unique in that it was one of the few studies where, you know, there's a low human population density. People hunt, but they still hunt traditionally with bow and arrow for the most part. And there's not a lot of commercial hunting because access to the region is pretty limited. And so we were able to show that like this level of hunting done by this many people is actually still sustainable. And then that information can be used to help set hunting quotas, hunting seasons, and all of that kind of stuff is the information that you need for wildlife management. Some of the information that you probably hear about in Dr. Lashley's course. We did find that unanimously there was an effect from hunting activity on animal activity patterns. So even though, so in the literature, most people say that, you know, like deer in hunted areas, deer shift their activity to be almost completely nocturnal instead of diurnal during the day. And the reason for that is because the sound of gunshots scares them and it makes them shift to being more active at night. In our study area, we found the same. Deer, peccaries, right, tapirs, all these animals shifted towards more nocturnal activity, even though people are hunting with bow and arrow where there's no sound. So there's something else about hunting that causes animals to change their behavior. The other interesting thing that we did in this study was, and this sort of reinforces the importance of indigenous knowledge, was before we even started to analyze all this data, we asked people from the region to rank which species they use and which species they're seeing less than they did 10 years ago. And so their local observations of the data matched our camera trap data almost exactly, right? So in the end, it means that we probably could have skipped doing all of those thousands of hours and hundreds of miles of walking around in the jungle and just asked people locally who knew which species are being affected by hunting. But you know, it's always good to go through the motions anyways. So that's a little bit about what we've done. Just while I wrap up here and sort of get towards questions, what in the last, what's it been, 3 years since I graduated from UF, our team has made a concerted effort to shift from research for the sake of research, right? Just research trying to count animals and estimate populations and understand distributions, to research or strictly conservation work. And I think this is something that is a little bit tricky to do at a university, because the expectation is that you're doing research and publishing papers and doing all that good stuff. The advantage that I have is that half of my salary comes from Jacksonville Zoo, and Jacksonville Zoo is exclusively interested in conservation, right? They, not that they don't like it, but they don't really care about publishing papers. What they want to see is conservation impact. So what our team tries to do now is a mix of research, but really research that's focused on conservation. So there's a few different things going on in Guyana right now. There's a road that's being paved in the interior. There's offshore oil development. There's sort of pressure from the global economy on resources of the interior, and to develop and improve roads and have internet and cell phone signal and all that stuff that the interior didn't really have. And so there's this sort of general shift in the interior towards people wanting money, basically, and stuff. For a long time, people fished, they hunted, they farmed, they lived off the land, they made their own food, they built their own houses. They might make a little bit of money here and there to get a speaker or a motorbike or some school uniforms for their kids. But for the most part, we're content living this subsistence lifestyle. Now, people want to have jobs, a steady income, so they can get stuff, right? TV and internet and all that good stuff that they see mostly in American movies that we have over here, which, you really can't blame them. So a few of the conservation projects that we're working on. So we contributed our jaguar data to an overall reassessment of the status of jaguars across their entire range 20 years after this was first done. We've been contributing data to impact modeling of that paving that highway into the interior. We've been working to inform wildlife regulations in the country, and we've been assisting with modeling for the expansion of the protected areas system in Guyana. So right now, Guyana has 5 protected areas. You can see them in green there. We worked with some researchers to help identify the important areas for biodiversity that would be conserved if the protected areas system in Guyana was expanded. And hopefully will start to happen this year or next year, although it was supposed to happen last year, so you never know. We're also working on a human jaguar conflict project. I said I have a student, Mishak, who's working on his master's and doing some human jaguar conflict work now. He's doing interviews and sort of the social side of the research. Our team is using camera traps and other tools to understand where and when conflict is happening. So you can see here, there's a cow walking through the forest, and just a couple minutes later, a female jaguar comes in a stalking stance, low and slow in the direction of the cow. We found the cow carcass just out of the screen of this, where this camera trap was set. Here are some piglets in an area next to a village. You see the piglets running off in that direction. Here comes a female jaguar behind them, and she returns with one piglet to dine on, luckily right in front of our camera, and spends a little bit of time feeding, and then walks away, and then returns at night, the same female jaguar. And I think maybe was bothered by the infrared flash from our camera, and so she took her meal to go. But every time we can identify where these conflicts things are happening, we can talk to livestock managers about the way they manage their livestock. Let me see if I can get this. There's a short video that we took here, which may be of interest. I'll see if it'll work. Hopefully it will, but maybe not. So while we're waiting, we've been doing this year, we've done mapping of conflict areas, working with people and doing community-based mapping. We've put GPS collars on free-roaming cows We want to someday we'd like to put them on jaguars, but right now it's very expensive and it's very dangerous to do. It's much easier to put them on cows. They're easier to catch and easier to collar, and cows roam free and people don't really know where they go. So it's important to get that information to show people where their livestock are going, where they're experiencing trouble from jaguars and pumas, right? We would call cougars or panthers. They have in Guyana as well, and they also take livestock. Videos being stubborn. In any case, you saw the photos. It's gonna throw off my whole thing. Anyway, so the human jaguar conflict project is due to end in March of next year. And in March, we're going to be hosting a big workshop for anybody who raises livestock across the region. We're going to be presenting all of our data, and then it's going to be a 5-day workshop. And we're going to spend 3 days working on solutions with people, identifying what are the issues and how can they be addressed? How can people shift the way that they keep livestock to help keep them away from areas where jaguars are frequenting? How can we, sort of alleviate stresses on resources and just generally conflict between jaguars and livestock? Because people do in this region routinely kill jaguars and pumas and ocelots in retaliation for killing livestock, cows, pigs, sheep, chickens. And our goal is to reduce this conflict, but also help people to increase the profitability of their livestock business. All right, so it looks like that this video maybe is not, oh, it is working now. Just very slowly. All right, so this was at a friend of mine's house. You can see these are his sheep. He has a sheep pen right behind his house. He told me that a jaguar was bothering his sheep. I didn't really believe him, but I left some camera traps anyways.
Dr. Hallett, we can't see the screen.
Oh, you can't see it? Okay.
Yeah, we can't see the video.
I have to share again. It was a different screen. All right, let me start this over. Thanks for letting me know.
No problem.
All right, so you see the sheep now? Okay, good. All right, so you can see sheep are here. This guy has a pen where he brings his sheep in at night. This is one of his dogs. They guard the sheep during the day. This was all picked up on some of the cameras that we set 3 cameras around this sheep pen to try to see what's going on. You see here, he and his wife are chasing his sheep into the pen at night, which they do every night. A lot of people, one of the issues that they face, as I said, their livestock are just free roaming, so they don't really take care of them necessarily. This guy, this was not the case for him. But still, you see this female jaguar trying to tear her way into the side of his sheep pen at night. And so she walks away now, sort of in the back of the screen there. So this was the same night that we set the cameras a couple of years ago. Here she is coming back again the same night, a couple hours later. This is a female jaguar. You can see that only one eye is reflecting in the video. It likely means that one of her eyes is injured, which might be why she's going after livestock in the first place. Also, I believe that she's pregnant, judging by her size and her belly there, and the hanging of her skin, her belly skin. So for female jaguars that are either pregnant or nursing, that additional demand on their bodies causes them to go after easy foods so that they can get protein, they can support feeding if they're developing a fetus in their bodies, support that development, or if they're nursing cubs, to support the production of that milk so they can keep nursing. So I had 3 cameras set around the pen, and so this is just sort of as she's walking around and kind of testing the sheep pen for weaknesses, trying to get inside. So this jaguar, unfortunately, so she didn't get any sheep. Now she's leaving again. She didn't come back. Unfortunately, she was shot in this same village almost 2 weeks later, because she had killed, she had killed a calf just far down, and unfortunately, she met her end. We do see that a lot of jaguars that are involved in conflict are injured, or young animals, or these sort of pregnant females. So the very last thing that we're working on right now, we have a project in coordination with the Guyana Wildlife Commission, who's sort of like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And our team started out at a very local level, at a grassroots level, working on local projects and local issues with local people. And over the years, we've done pretty well. We've done quite a few projects and have grown a little bit of a reputation. So we were contracted by the government of Guyana to conduct nationwide assessments of 6 different species. So one is the lowland tapir, which we've been assessing with trail cameras. You see it there at the top, but also 2 species of tortoise, the yellow-footed and the red-footed, which are there in the picture, and 3 species of caimans. Not the species of caiman that I was originally working on, but this is a spectacled, and 2 species of dwarf caiman. All 6 of these species are harvested for food in Guyana. Yellow-footed and red-footed tortoises are sold in the international pet trade. Spectacled caimans are harvested for leather and for other crafts, and both caiman, the small caiman species, are also harvested for the pet and food trade. So our job, and these are our project leads here, Shuang and Fernando, are working on this project to conduct population assessments and then make recommendations directly to the government for harvest and trade quotas moving forward. We're in the middle of that project now, and it'll be finished up in October. Well, not October, in December, excuse me. And hopefully we'll have some information to report back. So I'll skip through the rest of these. So I hopefully, you heard a little bit of information about a new place, learned about some work that's going on there, how zoos and universities can come together to support conservation work. We've had lots of supporters and lots of collaborators over the years, both local and international, and have lots and lots of research teams that we've worked with. Here's my contact information on the screen. Our research team has all of the requisite social media outlets. I try to keep up with posting on them as much as I can, but I'm currently in sort of a social media fatigue, so I haven't been posting as much as I used to. Facebook is still the most popular social media outlet in Guyana, so I'm there most. I know that's like an old person thing for you guys now, but in Guyana, it's still sort of the most popular. So thank you again for having me. Feel free to reach out if you're interested, and I'm happy to take any questions anyone has.
So what do you do for Guyana when you're in Florida? Like, I assume you spend part of the year there.
I do.
And then what do you keep up that work when you're here in Florida, or do you kind of switch gears entirely? Like, how does that look, splitting your time?
I do, thanks. Yeah, so basically my schedule looks like I'm teach here at UF in the fall, and then in the spring, I'm mostly back and forth to Guyana. And also at spring and summer, I'm sort of back and forth to Guyana. So once the fall semester is over, but we have 4 projects going on right now that are ongoing sort of as we speak. So I have our research group in Guyana. We have a leadership team. And so I talk to those guys like every day through WhatsApp. And then they have people that are working underneath them. They're coordinating activities that are going on. And we're sort of to the point now where, as far as the field work goes, those guys if anything, I slow them down when I'm there. They know what they're doing. They're really good at it. We've been doing it for years and they like doing it. So as long as the funding is there to make sure everybody gets paid and we can move from point A to point B, all of the projects that we're doing can keep going, and I don't even have to be there. But But I love being there and I love being in the field. So I do take advantage of it in the spring and summer and spend some time out there. And when we have work, when we're working on new projects like the project with GPS collaring the cows, I went down and we did a bunch of training because that was new for everyone. And we had to sort of learn how do we catch the cows? How do you hold a cow, a big Brahma bull in place so that you can put a collar around its neck? What type of strap do you want to use around the neck? How do we get the collar back when we're done? All of that kind of stuff. We sort of learn how to do it together. So that's how my year goes. And I keep up with everybody. When I'm here, I keep up with everybody online, and then they send me data and questions, and we just keep things going that way. I'm hoping I'm right now in the process of trying to develop a study abroad course for WEC undergrads in Guyana. I would really like to do a short one during spring break and a longer one in the summer. And I'm pushing to get that approved. So if and when I do for this year, I'll be sure to let you guys know if you're interested in going to Guyana yourselves and seeing what this place is all about.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
I was gonna kind of ask something similar to that, like about study abroad stuff. I was wondering like how you initially like got involved in Guyana and like what advice you would give to students who are looking to like do conservation work abroad.
Sure. So I initially got involved in Guyana because there was, it was sort of a friend of a friend of a friend situation. When I was working at Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, they had a veterinarian who had done some work in Guyana, actually with giant otters. And the aquarium started supporting some conservation work there. A bunch of people went and did a site visit, and somebody that had been my boss at the aquarium, she knew that I was sort of stagnant at the aquarium. I didn't want to, I had been there for a time, but I was ready to move on. And she told me there's this place called Cayman House, and they accept volunteers. They do this cayman research, and they're looking for people. And I reached out to them, and then the next thing I knew, 1 month later, I was on a plane, heading for a place that I had no idea what it was all about. Because it's really hard also to find stuff online on Guyana, so I almost knew nothing about it. So for me, those things tend to happen. But the thing that I always tell people is that those opportunities do come along, and when they do, I think you just have to jump on them. You never know when things are going to come up. Actually, the whole thing with Jacksonville Zoo, it all came up because there's an otter at Jacksonville Zoo, a giant otter at Jacksonville Zoo that I knew when he lived in Guyana. He was blinded in Guyana as a pup in an accident, and so through the same vet, he ended up coming to Jacksonville Zoo because he couldn't be re-released into the wild. So he came into captivity where he could survive. He could be part of a breeding program. When I first came to UF to do my PhD, my phone was broken and the nearest Apple store was in Jacksonville. So I drove up there and I dropped my phone. And then I remembered, oh, hey, Buddy is over at Jacksonville Zoo, so I'll go see him. And when I went to see him, it was like a Wednesday afternoon. And I was a strange adult man who was at the zoo by himself. But I struck up a conversation with a zookeeper, and she just happened to be one of the people who went down to collect Buddy from Guyana when he came to the zoo. And she put me in touch with John Lucas, who's now my boss, and things just kind of snowballed from there. So I always tell people that you never know when those things are going to come up. You never know when, somebody, like I was standing there in the otter exhibit thinking like, I don't want to bother this person. I seem like a weirdo because I'm a guy by myself at the zoo, and I'm going to say, oh, I really like giant otters. And she's going to think I'm super weird. And I almost didn't say anything. But now, of course, I'm glad I did, because that was sort of how the whole relationship that I have now with Jacksonville Zoo started. So you never know when that stuff's going to come up. But I think if you're ready and willing to jump on it, and you show enthusiasm. I know that, like, I felt like if you have a guest speaker in class, or you run into somebody, you feel like, oh, I don't want to bother them by sending them an email. Like, people don't get that many emails. So it is like it is notable when you show some interest and some enthusiasm and you reach out, you go the extra mile, all that kind of stuff, sort of cliche stuff. It really does, I believe, make a difference.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else have a question?
I do. What do
Yeah.
you think makes like the conservation model where you work so special, like compared to those that are in other places abroad? Like, I feel like in Africa, there's a lot of the same issues, but things are being done differently.
Sure.
It makes your like conservation model so special and like success.
Yeah. I think that, well, a lot of people would say that it's because in Guyana, there are so few people. So you're dealing with really low human population density. And so you can sort of deal with people and communities, because it's not, like a village in Guyana might be 300 people. A village in India might be 300,000 people, right? So the scale is huge in other places. And so people would tell you that because there are so many people, the only solution is to put up fences and have guns and keep people out and all that kind of stuff, right? I've always said, and maybe I'm just spoiled because there are sort of not many people in Guyana, but I've always said that, people are going to do what they want to do regardless, right? Our ability to put up fences and keep people separate from nature and preserve one place by, sort of by force is really limited, because nature is huge and there's lots of places to hide and everybody, you can always sneak around. So I feel like the only way to make progress in conservation, is to get people on the team. I feel like we're so, you see it in my opinion, you see it in the US right now with politics, right? Everyone has their team, and no matter what the team does, like, they support the team. And I feel like my goal has always been, whether a lot of people who work with me now, they were turtle hunters, people that are working on this tortoise project, they were tortoise hunters, caiman harvesters, commercial hunters for tapir meat and all this kind of stuff. Those people are super knowledgeable as a result of that work that they were doing. And, people that don't do everything with conservation in mind are not bad people. They're just trying to support, and oftentimes they're just trying to support their families. So if you can give them an opportunity and say, hey, you can make a living doing this, and you don't have to be breaking the law or sneaking around, you can build new skills, you can, all these other advantages that we can offer, I think it is what makes it work. That's our approach. It is definitely, we do benefit from the low population density in that end. If we were dealing with villages of 300,000 people, there's no way that we could employ everyone or even a good proportion of everyone. But now we make a pretty good dent of, employing and training people and creating opportunities. And so I really focus on the human part. I let people decide what projects are important and what animals are important. And as long as we're putting energy and time into creating opportunities for people, I feel like then you have a chance to make some progress.
Thank you.
Sure. Did I see Andrew? Did you have your hand up? Maybe not. Maybe I was seeing things. So I see people have to go. That's totally fine. And if anybody has to go, you can feel free. If anybody has a question or they want to ask something, feel free to stick around. Thanks so much for having me. I know I already said that, but I appreciate it. I always like sharing stuff about Guyana, and I'm happy to come back anytime. I do have some local projects going in Florida, so if right here in Alachua County, actually, and even some stuff on campus. So if anybody's interested in camera trap work and you're interested in some stuff locally, feel free to reach out as well. it's I spent part of the weekend tromping around. It's very, very wet right now. So if you're interested in doing field work right now, make sure you have some rubber boots.
Thank you so much. If there are any questions, feel free to leave. And yeah, thanks again for coming.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation and coming.
Sure, happy to. Thanks. You'll have to act excited when I talk about this stuff again in class.
No, I got you. I'll do the
Won't
whole
give
thing.
the same
Leslie,
exact
we'll do
one,
the whole
but there'll
thing.
Yeah,
be a
I've got
couple of
my
We're gonna go.
Perfect.
face ready.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.